Hello and welcome to the Quantum Bridge. Very fortunate again to have yet another guest, a returning guest today. It's really nice to have people coming back on, having that continuity, having that energy. So before I blather on about all of that stuff, other than to say welcome, I won't give the name away yet. Gary, over to you, mate, and please do the introduction.
I shall. So, hello, Jose. Welcome back to the show.
Hey guys, good to
Good
be
to
back.
have you again. We're going to start today, at least, with a favourite or not so favourite topic of mine, which is speeding. So, not implicating myself in any way there, but we've had a lot of actually, it's quite a current topic, I would say, with the changes in Wales, where I believe everywhere that was 30 got reduced down to 20 miles per hour. It seems a bit mad, but there we go. And of course, with the motorist is getting hammered, I think, on all fronts with surveillance and cameras, and it just seems to be the current trend, I guess. So my views on this speeding thing, if I was in charge, I know it's controversial, but I'd probably get rid of all of it, because I would just think I'm a responsible adult, and they usually use this safety thing of going past schools or this. I mean, I don't know a school that you can particularly speed past personally, because it's usually rammed with cars when it's open and kids are running around. And 10 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock, it seems mad to be going 20. But those are my views. I'm sure you guys have got the same, but let's hear what you've got to say on the subject, Jose, because I know it's been a bit of a journey for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I can see that you don't want a bunch of crazy people driving around at 100 miles an hour, knocking down old ladies, killing children, destroying pets and farm animals and all of that sort of thing. Absolutely. I think we know that. But at the same time, take a look around. There's cameras everywhere, right? And there's probably cameras you don't even know about, right? Aren't there? There's cameras in your flipping camera. So it's like, in my case, I had a couple of speeding tickets, and one of them went away. I wrote a notice to a particular county police force, and I wrote to the chief of police, and they just, I don't know why, but I never heard back from them. So that was the end of that story. But a different county police force, yes, I speed all over the country.
But if you're going to do it,
yeah, do it everywhere.
Just for clarity, I don't know. I mean, when I've been done, I mean, we're talking not many miles per hour over the limit here.
No.
And of course, nothing's actually happened. I mean, I know in one instance they said to me, "Oh, there's a camera there because other people have driven in, crashed into the roundabout." So I was like, "Well, so I'm here because other people have crashed into the roundabout." Where I drove safely down the road. So there we go. Yeah, I interject, but carry on.
Yeah. So, and in this particular thing it was a pop-up van. They stuck it in a village. You couldn't see it till it was too late, kind of thing. And it was very well positioned. And okay, I can see from a legal perspective, I was driving over the legal limit. All right, but my issue, and I had to think really long and hard about this. I had to search my soul, because there's some dishonor in getting out of something, wriggling out of something, if you've been back to court, to rights, as it were. But it's just the discomfort that I had was the fact that I feel watched at every turn. And how are you a free man or free woman in those circumstances? And that's what I had an issue with. So I'd written back and forth lots of hilarious letters. I used sort of common law things and stuff that I was learning as I went along. It's complicated. But then I came across another course, which is called The Law for Mankind. And we can probably share that in the description.
Absolutely.
And I started doing it because I had a couple of things, I had some other problems as well, legally, very minor stuff. And I started doing this course, and I realized within a module or two that it was like the most spiritual thing I'd ever done in my life. And I mean, I've spent my life doing spiritual things, and here we are talking about law, and I was re-examining my personal truths and like what my soul wanted, and what was the law from my perspective. How did I set law? How did I keep honor with other people? How did I make remedy for things that was responsible for doing? And who at my core am I? Or what am I at my core? And the stuff is just like blows you away when you start thinking about it. Anyway, so I did this course, and I had a long think about what I was going to do, because although my notices didn't work, and I eventually got pulled into the prosecution system, and the first thing that happened was that they heard the case without me, but I had notified them that I wasn't available on the day that they'd put forward. They gave me 5 days notice over the weekend. So I'd written back to the court and said, I can't do that date, but here are some other dates that I can do. And they'd also asked me to, you're meant to fill in a form, aren't you? So you got a prosecution thing, and you're meant to fill it in. Well, the moment you fill in that paperwork, you fall under their jurisdiction, right? And so you lose all your power. You enter the legal system and you enter the matrix, and the matrix has you. So it's over the moment you do that. So they wrote back to me because I hadn't filled that in, and they said, "Oh, by the way, you haven't pleaded." And so I wrote back to the people at the court and said, I don't plead, because whether I plead guilty or not guilty, I'm consenting to this statute, and I don't consent to the statute. So there was no response. So I didn't get any responses to any of the stuff that I sent. But anyway, I wrote to require a court day. So they reopened the case, and I went down to the court, and quite frankly, I was absolutely shitting myself, because I don't enjoy conflict. I don't attract conflict. I keep away from it. And I think most people are pretty meek and don't want to have kind of argy-bargy and unpleasant high-level emotions. Do you know what I mean? It's like we shouldn't be living like that. So I went down to the court. I was very, very afraid, and they called me in. And I walked in. The court was a lot like a classroom, really. It was more like a classroom than a court to me. And you had, up on a little raised area, there was 2 magistrates, and then sitting just in front of them was a chap who referred to himself as a legal advisor. And then there was the clerk of the court who ushered me in. And she was very specific. It's like the naughty step, There was this chair that had been pulled out, and she pushed the chair in. And she said to me, "You stand there." And so I went in, and something rose up in me. I pulled the chair out and I sat down. And the magistrate said to me, "Will you stand, please?" And I said, "No, I'm not standing." And they said, "Well," I don't know if they said, "What do you mean? You have to stand?" And I said, "No, I'm a man. I'm not standing." So they immediately called court security and left the courtroom. So, and they asked me to leave. So I got up and I wandered out of the courtroom, and these 2 security guys came barreling in looking for a horrible troublemaker. They went right past me because, I was just like some guy. And I sat outside, and then they came out kind of looking around for trouble, and there wasn't any. And I sat outside, and I got chatting to this wonderful Ghanaian security guard. He was retired, normally works in Birmingham, but had come to Wellingborough to help out. He was saying he was the loveliest man. He was a very, very humble, beautiful soul. And we got chatting. We had a really good chat. And he was saying, you should stand for the magistrates. And I was explaining to him why I shouldn't stand for the magistrates, because we're all men and women under God. It's as simple as that. One man is not above another. No, one man does not have authority over another. I know we're talking about a speeding fine, but we're also talking about reality.
We're talking about everything. Yeah.
Yes, we're talking about everything, our world and the reality that we live in.
That's right.
And anyway, I had a lovely chat with this bloke, and I said, because I was wanting support and I'd been praying that morning before I went down there because I was so terrified. I can't believe it. Why are we so terrified of these people, right? They're just men and women, just like us. Okay.
Of course.
So I sat out there and I said to him, I know you were sent by God, weren't you, to talk to me? And he had this little grin on his face and we had a little joke about it. Anyway, they called me back into the court and I went back in. The magistrates had remained absent at this point. And then the legal advisor tried to pressure me into standing. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm here as a man under God. I said that those two magistrates are men. And I said, if they've got the courage to come back into this room and speak to me as men, then we have lots to discuss. I had my little file with all my paperwork and stuff in it, and notices and all that rubbish. And he said, look, but it's a mark of respect. And I said, well, that may be. I said, but are you seriously telling me that the position of my body in this room has some bearing on law? And he was like, And then he kicked me out again. So I went back outside and sat and chatted to my friend, the security guard. The other two security guards kind of realized there wasn't anything to worry about. So they disappeared. And sometime later, the clerk of the court and the legal advisor came out and they had this bit of paper and they were kind of quiet and they said, we're very sorry, there's no one here to reopen your case today, you're free to go. And I looked at them and I said, so, what does that mean? Because I didn't understand what it meant. And he looked at me and he looked at the clerk of the court and he looked at his paper and he says, I'm very sorry, there's no one here to reopen your case today, you're free to go. Because he couldn't depart from the script, right? There wasn't anything else he could say. So I said to my new friend, the security guard, I said, can you explain what that means? And he said, yeah, you're done. It's all over. You can go. And so I left the courtroom and I was elated. Now, the caveat for this is that I don't believe that people should learn law so that they get out of fines and things like that if they've done something wrong. But the reason that I did it was, as I said before, I don't want to live in a police state. I don't want to live in a surveillance state. I don't want somebody breathing down my neck all the time. Like you said earlier on, Gary, you're a responsible man. You know whether you're in control of your private conveyance or not, and you know, and what speed you can safely conduct it at, right? And so do I. And that was the end of that story.
Yeah,
I think it's
brilliant. It's such an empowerment story. I mean, I think we'll find, maybe not weirdly actually, but strangely enough, I think we'll find that many people are going through very similar experiences at the moment, more because there is an energy supporting all of this. Less to do even with we see other people doing it, and there's people talking about, you know, common law and sovereignty and what. That's all lovely, but in the end, they're all sort of concepts. I'm much more interested in that groundswell of realization and empowerment that you are a sovereign soul, i.e. less about all of those other things we tack onto it after the event, so to speak. But I think that was hugely uplifting, and it's massively important, to me at least, that people are coming into their own power. And with that, accepting that we also do have as much, if not more, responsibility. So that's the wonderful thing that you raised there. The coming into your own power, the facing your fears, the doing of something, watching the system melt away, but something else rising up, which is this natural sense of divine justice, which we should all feel and embody, that might even say after that, but I still feel I need to atone in some way, or not. Yeah. But I think that that's the beauty of what you've been through and what you've been feeling, and the bravery. I mean, look, it doesn't matter whether it's a speeding ticket or, you know, I won't use another more graphic example, but it doesn't really matter where it is on that spectrum. What matters is that you found the ability to conduct yourself in a rather beautiful, honest, transparent, spiritual way in something that really was utterly, really pretty mundane. You found the divinity in that. And I think for me, that's what I take from that story.
Yeah.
It's a catalyst, I suppose, in that sense. Sometimes it can be something very small. I know sometimes people say to me, well, he's getting so wound up about this thing, this one little thing. But that's all it takes sometimes, And I think when you mentioned of it's being fearful, it's scary sometimes. But I think that is because we're not criminals. We're not used to these. We just go about our life peacefully, and then all of a sudden you're dragged into these systems, and it's a bit scary. Going, oh, this is an alien sort of world here. I don't go out robbing banks and harming people and all this sort of thing. It's not my world. And then all of a sudden you're criminalized for something that, well, there isn't even a victim involved. I mean,
yeah.
So it's odd. And of course, a lot of it is done, like you said, we don't want these confrontations and things because of that. So normally we get something, just pay the thing,
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, well, I think I know, but what was it inside? It has to come from inside for you to say, actually, this time, no.
Yeah. I've always had an issue with authority. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's got that problem.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. I've never ever had a feeling like that.
Yes. Yes, I would love to lick your boot heel, right? Ever since I was a kid, I knew there was something incorrect about one man being over another in any way, but I couldn't put it into words, and I haven't been able to put it into words until quite recently, probably. And this conflict that I had inside myself and with the legal society brought it to a head. It made me think really carefully about what was the dynamic here, what's going on here. What is this system that we've allowed, right, stupidly, to occur? Or I say stupidly, ignorantly, let's say, because we didn't know any better. Because there are people that will have probably risked perhaps their lives or other things in order to get the freedoms that we think we have now, but we don't know how to exercise, do we? We don't know how to be free. We think we're free, but I don't think most people actually live a free life. And so that's why on this occasion, I just thought, no, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not going to do this. And this is the moment where I take responsibility. And it is a learning process. It's not simple. It takes time. You can't just be a guy who feels free and empowered and stuff like that. Or at least I can't. I have to learn. I have to embody. It takes time. I have to go through emotions, uncomfortable stuff, But I find myself on this journey to that place. And I just think that we could in theory, live in a world where we interact with each other in an honest way, without being so terrified of our own behavior that we impose these crazy rules on each other and punishments and fines and all of that. I mean, it's just gone wrong in so many different ways, I suppose, is what I'm saying. And, the only, Jiddu Krishnamurti, if you come across Krishnamurti, he was he was a wisdom teacher sort of guy. And one thing that he said that really stuck with me, he said, there's only one revolution that can ever take place, and that's the one that takes place inside you. Yeah. He said, because you can riot in the streets or you can protest in your capital city. He says, but what you're really doing is petitioning the prison warden for better conditions. You're still in the fucking prison, right? At the end of it. So this is what we've got to change. and it happens one person at a time. You can't do it in a big group. It just doesn't work that way. But like Casper was saying earlier on, there does seem to be this like a groundswell of possibility where people now are saying, oh, well, maybe I can be a different person. Maybe I can be a better person. Maybe I can get to know my soul and live, I don't know, not a better life, but a purer life somehow, more honest life, a truer life, something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for authenticity. And I mean, look, ultimately, no matter where we go outside and these things that we try to face and unravel, it is always a bit like making changes within a dream and then expecting those changes to matter and to be in place when we wake up. And I think that any of those external actions can never provide the fundamental change in that external expression that work on yourself can. I know Gary spent years working very much on that internal side, and I'm sure you have as well, by the way, Jose, whether you necessarily have been sort of watching yourself do that work all the time. But I think as you do more of that work now or notice it, you will actually be reminded that you've been doing it for your whole life anyway.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Jose, because we did a show just recently with another chap with Alan that was about revolution versus evolution. That was, like Casper's and you guys are getting at, is that you're begging we've done all that revolution before and it doesn't work. You end up in the same place, and the only way is to really rise up in a different way by evolving inside.
Yeah, I absolutely concur with that. It resonates with me. That's what I'm feeling. That's exactly what I'm feeling. And on the subject of feeling, I am allowing myself to be guided now completely by my emotions, good or bad, and my instincts, whatever it feels. And I'm switching this guy off now because I just where does that get us? And on the subject, I mean, so there's a follow-on to the Law for Mankind course, and it's a workshop that's been running it's run by the originator of the course, and it's like a much smaller thing, like a retreat. And I went on this a couple of weeks ago, and since then I've closed all my alternative media windows that are always open on my computer. I've left all the Telegram groups I was in, except one. I've resigned from working with the People's Health Alliance. I've resigned from working with the Northamptonshire Community Assembly. And I have just brought all my energy home. This is where I'm going to stay now. I don't know how long for, if I'll ever get back into it. But I realized there was an element of all of that stuff. There was an addiction in me. I was getting filled up with that. And it was filling the places where I was afraid, or and also just that kind of addictive feeling, or I need a fag, I need a drink, I need a whatever it is. It was that same feeling, and it's not easy, because I'll sit down in the evening and I think, oh right, okay, what am I going to do now? Well, like Gary started this morning, or what am I doing?
This is it.
But I've started writing poetry again, which is how I started writing like 30 odd years ago. And that's how I got started. Poetry was easy because it was a low level of commitment. You could do one line and you'd be like, yeah, I'm a poet. That's good enough, So I'm writing poetry and listening to my emotions. And I'm going to re-release all my previously published fiction that isn't available. I'm going to just sling it all out there in the next few weeks as soon as I can, and just see what happens. See what happens.
I think it's really funny you're saying this, and Gary hopefully bear me out on this. Like the last few people that we've been engaging with, and even obviously we're feeling this too, because this must be impersonal. It feels very personal, right? And we like to take ownership of things. I mean, me more than any of you guys like to say, it's mine, it's me, aren't I great, all this stuff. But everybody we're speaking to is saying, I've sort of come off social media. I've had to find a balance with social media. I've pulled away from this. everybody is coming back to that thing, whether we're necessarily recognizing it or not, of that work on yourself for that next step of, there will be that outpouring, but it will, I think it's going to be a very different wave that we're going to see. So just really interesting that you're saying something that really resonates, of course, with us, but actually with a whole load of people that we've been engaging with recently.
Yeah, that's good to know, because if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I thought I'd give you a little support in that. You're not on your own in that. It must be something that's just happening. And then, of course, we take ownership and say, well, there's a reason why I'm doing that. There's a reason why I'm leaving that. There's a reason why I've decided to do this. But actually, how much of it is actually our conscious decisions, and how much of it is part of this next wave of, for want of a better word, consciousness, the expression of consciousness.
Yeah, I suppose it's odd, because obviously I agree with what you guys are saying, but at the same time, I was almost in a opposite space. So for years, I'd done what Jose did. I just brought everything in. That's it, and I don't involve myself with things. But in the last year or so, it's kind of like, you're getting this nudge. Like, say, well, you've got to. Well, are you going to just live and die, or are you going to do something? And that's how the channel came about. It took, months of just sitting there processing that. Am I going to do this? Do I really want to do it? And then you get this push, and then I actually joined social media some years back, but that was just a little nudge thing, because I was adamant I was never going to go near any of that stuff. But again, I like you're finding that I do follow that intuitive guide, even if I don't agree sometimes, and we have back and forth. Like, are you sure, mate? Are you sure? Yes. Will you just get on with it? And you have to just so follow that. So I do that. Sometimes I go out, sometimes I withdraw. But I suppose I'm in that phase now where it's like action stations.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys have come from a quiet place into the noise, but you were ready, because you must have done some internal preparation to bring you to that point where you were ready to do that work, and I've in the past looked for limelight and attention and stuff through my written work and all of that, and I just realized that that wasn't a real reason. When I go back to the pure original desires, it was just about sharing stories with people, about entertaining and just being creative. That was where all that stuff began, and it just got bastardized and twisted and perverted along the way. I got the industry, I'm talking about writing fiction now, it just sucks you in and it spits you out again on the other side. I sometimes think about all the writers that get chewed up by publishers and spat out the other side after 3 books, and they've got nothing left after that. And I'm just thinking now, no, I'm going back to original stuff. If I write again, so fair enough, and if I don't write again, that's also fair enough. I don't feel attached like I used to, so I'm kind of feeling free. But I totally appreciate that somebody's got to bring a message to the world, and so you've taken that mantle, and I know just from the name of your channel, which I love, that's what you're doing. So yeah, I appreciate
the key thing why I think that this quote unquote works, actually, 2 things. One, we didn't want to put ourselves out there, so that's quite a helpful starting point. And the second one is the channel isn't about Gary or me. If it was, it would have its moment. It might have its 15 seconds. It may even not have that, but it would ultimately potentially burn brightly and then fall away, because that's the nature of that type of energy. But the nature of a platform that facilitates other people having their time and being recycled and coming back and never being dispensed with, I think that's actually quite a new phenomenon.
Yeah. Because we don't, I mean, everyone's welcome, but we don't sort of chase big names or anything like that. Everyone is.
Oh, we've got Jose. Hang on.
Well, Jose is a famous
Right.
author, poet. Yeah.
Generally, we don't.
Yes, but yes, but it's that thing of everybody is equal. It's there's no one guest above the other. It doesn't. We usually just feel the vibe and then we invite somebody on. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up, as the time, as usual, is always against us. Are you publishing these books yourself now, Jose?
Yeah, so I've got I already published my books that have previously been published elsewhere. And
where you've wrestled the rights back.
They have gradually come back to me over the years, and in fact, I think the last ones, the Black Dawn books, are now more or less mine again. After they've had those for like, I don't know, 10 years. So anyway, so all of that stuff I'm going to release initially as ebooks, just so I can get it out there quick. So I've got novellas that some people have read or may not have. I'm going to put some long short stories out as well, and I'm going to put out the remaining published novels. If I can find an editor that I can work with, I've got like at least 2 good to go manuscripts of full-length novels, fantasy and stuff like that, which I'd love to see. I'd love people to be able to read them, but without that kind of help, I'm unlikely to be able to do it on my own. But anyway, I do have a guy who helps me with the covers and the production and stuff like that, so I can get that far with what I've got now. And we're just going to do a really simple it's going to be like Penguin books. It's just going to have a very slightly different color on each of the covers, and just my imprint logo. It's called Phasmid. Just going to have that logo on there and the title and my name, and that's it for the ebooks. And then we might give covers to the other ones, or we might not.
Well, you never know.
It feels perfect to me.
If there's any editors listening who might, you never know.
You never know, no.
Yeah, that's it. Excellent. Right. Well, I think that's about covers it. We'll put all the information, I guess, in the description of the video, your books, and that course that you mentioned. Definitely. Is that free, or is it a paid course?
It's a paid course. It's 10 modules of spoken presentations. It's presented by 2 guys. Both of them have been through law, from the arse up, if you like. They've learnt it by fighting their own battles and stuff, and they know exactly what they're talking about. And I would refer to them as like some of the more evolved souls on Earth right now. Cool. The stuff they're giving in that course is like, you can't put a value on it. The more you listen, the more you understand, and the more you grow. It's a really extraordinary thing. I don't know how else to describe it. I know it says it's the law for mankind, and it's like it's a law course, but it's just so much more than that. I highly recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. I'd like to engage with that too. So thank you for bringing that to my and Gary's and obviously the audience's attention. I think that in itself is a very worthy piece of work you've done today, as well as bearing your soul around other things, which none of us ever take for granted, by the way.
Thank you.
That's all right. And you're welcome back anytime, Jose. Hopefully.
Of course, yeah.
Not, we don't want any more troubles like you've just been through.
Let's do something.
We're going to talk about acupuncture and your day job type thing. So
let's talk about something quite different next time.
Yeah.
Let's go warm and fluffy next time.
Let's go warm and fluffy, at least for a while.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks
you so much.
Lovely to see you as always.
Yeah. Good to see you too. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Pleasure.